My name is Mason Collins, 32 years old, and I've always been the black sheep of my wealthy family. When I arrived at my brother Trevor's 10th wedding anniversary celebration at our family estate, I was determined to fit in, just this once. Little did I know that beneath the champagne glasses and polite smiles, particularly from my stepmother Diana, lurked something sinister. There was always tension between us since she married my father after my mother's death. That night changed everything about our family forever. Before I tell you how my family was torn apart that night, drop a like and subscribe if you've ever sensed something wasn't right with someone you're supposed to trust. The Collins family estate stood like a monument to old money on the outskirts of Boston, its limestone facade gleaming in the late afternoon sun as I pulled my modest Toyota into the circular driveway. Luxury vehicles lined the entrance, making my car look like it had taken a wrong turn. The irony wasn't lost on me. Despite being born into wealth, I'd chosen a different path, one that didn't involve riding my father's coattails through life. "Mason! You made it!" Trevor called from the front steps, champagne glass already in hand. My older brother by 3 years, he'd taken the expected route through life, Harvard Business School, executive position at our father's company, perfect marriage to Natalie, who came from an equally prestigious family. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, giving him a genuine hug. Despite our different life choices, Trevor and I had maintained a decent relationship. 10 years with Natalie. Either you're doing something right or she has incredibly low standards. Trevor laughed, his perfect white teeth catching the light. Bit of both, probably. "Come inside, everyone's here." As we walked through the grand foyer with its 20-foot ceilings and marble staircase, memories flooded back. Running down these halls as children, mother's laugh echoing through the rooms. But those happy memories ended abruptly when I turned 12. Cancer took her within 6 months, and our family was never the same. "Mason, darling!" The voice that broke through my memories belonged to Diana, my stepmother of 15 years. She floated toward me in an expensive silver dress, arms outstretched. "We were worried you might not come." I accepted her embrace, noticing how she held me just a beat too long, her perfume overwhelming. At 48, Diana was still strikingly beautiful, with honey blonde hair and a figure maintained by the best personal trainers money could buy. She'd married my father barely a year after my mother's death. And despite her constant attempts at affection, something about her had always felt off to me. "I wouldn't miss Trevor's big day," I said, extracting myself from her grip. "Your father will be so pleased." She hooked her arm through mine, guiding me toward the great room where the party was already in full swing. "He's been asking when you'd arrive." That was certainly a lie. Robert Collins and I had barely spoken in years, our relationship deteriorating after my decision to become a high school teacher instead of joining the family investment firm. In his eyes, I'd rejected everything he'd built. In my eyes, he'd replaced my mother too quickly and allowed Diana to drive a wedge between us. The great room was filled with about 50 guests, a mix of family members, business associates, and friends. My father stood near the fireplace, deep in conversation with my Uncle Brandon. They looked like older and younger versions of the same person, both with silver hair and tailored suits that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Jessica, my younger sister, waved from across the room where she sat with our cousin Lucas. At 29, Jessica had followed Trevor's path, working in marketing at Collins Investments. She'd always been more accepting of Diana, perhaps because she'd been younger when we lost our mother. "Look who finally decided to grace us with his presence," my father said as Diana delivered me to him. His tone was light, but I could hear the underlying tension. "Good to see you too, Dad," I replied, accepting his brief handshake. No hug, of course. Robert Collins didn't do physical affection with his disappointment of a son. "How's the teaching going?" he asked, though I knew he wasn't really interested. "Still changing lives one algebra equation at a time," I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Someone has to, I suppose." he replied dismissively before turning his attention back to Brandon. Diana squeezed my arm. Don't mind him, he's just stressed about the Gardner merger. Come, let me get you a drink. I followed her to the bar, watching as she spoke to the bartender, a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. I noticed how Diana leaned in, speaking quietly before pointing toward a specific glass on the tray. Something about her body language struck me as odd, but I dismissed it. Here we are. Diana handed me a glass of champagne. I made sure they gave you the good stuff. I thanked her, but didn't drink immediately. Instead, I made my way over to Jessica and Lucas. The prodigal son returns, Jessica teased, standing to kiss my cheek. I was beginning to think you'd skip it. And miss all this family warmth? Never. I gestured around the room with my untouched glass. Lucas chuckled. Some things never change. How's life in the real world, cousin? Less dramatic than this place, I replied. How's the art gallery? Lucas was the other family outlier, having opened a successful contemporary art gallery in New York instead of joining the family business. Thriving. You should come by sometime. We could grab dinner, catch up properly. As we chatted, I kept noticing Diana watching me from across the room, her eyes repeatedly darting to the champagne glass in my hand. It wasn't the first time I'd felt her watching me at family gatherings. In fact, now that I thought about it, there had been several occasions over the years where I'd felt strangely ill after family events where Diana had insisted on handling the drinks or food. Ladies and gentlemen, the event planner announced, we'll be serving dinner in 15 minutes. Please begin making your way to your seats for the anniversary toast. Trevor and Natalie stood arm in arm near the dining room entrance, looking like the perfect couple they were. Natalie caught my eye and waved. Unlike Diana, her warmth seemed genuine, and I'd always appreciated how she made efforts to include me in family events despite my strained relationship with my father. As everyone began moving toward the dining room, Diana suddenly appeared at my side again. Mason, I've put you at the family table, of course. Right between me and Jessica. Thanks, I murmured, still holding my full champagne glass. She nodded toward it. Not drinking? That's not like you. There was something in her tone, a hint of challenge perhaps, that made my skin crawl. Just waiting for the toast, I replied. Her eyes narrowed slightly before her smile returned. Of course. How thoughtful of you. As we entered the dining room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The elaborate crystal centerpieces sparkled under the chandelier light, and at each place setting was another champagne glass, these filled with what appeared to be a different amber-colored champagne. Special vintage for the toast, Diana explained, following my gaze. I selected it myself. I nodded, watching as she personally checked each place setting, adjusting the glasses slightly. When she reached what was apparently my seat, she lingered, making a small adjustment to the glass that seemed unnecessary. The knot in my stomach tightened. I needed a moment to think, away from Diana's watchful eyes. I'll be right back, I said. Just need to use the restroom before dinner. Diana's smile didn't waver, but I could have sworn I saw something flicker in her eyes. Hurry back. We wouldn't want to start without you. I headed down the hallway toward the powder room, grateful for a moment alone to clear my head. Diana's behavior was making me uneasy, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly why. Was I just being paranoid? Years of tension could make anyone suspicious, I supposed. As I reached for the bathroom door handle, a voice whispered urgently from behind me. Mr. Collins. I turned to find the dark-haired bartender from earlier standing in the shadows of the hallway. Her name tag read, Rachel, and her expression was tense, eyes darting nervously toward the main room. I'm sorry to bother you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I need to tell you something. What is it? I asked, immediately alert. Rachel glanced over her shoulder again before stepping closer. It's about your stepmother. I saw her put something in your drink. My blood ran cold. What? When she came to the bar earlier, she had something in her hand. A small vial. She specifically asked which glass would be yours and then. Rachel's voice trembled slightly. I saw her add drops to your champagne while the other bartender was distracted. For a moment, I just stared at her, processing this information. Part of me wanted to dismiss it as impossible. Drugging someone at a family gathering? It seemed too dramatic, too criminal. But another part of me, the part that had always felt uneasy around Diana, wasn't surprised at all. Are you certain? I asked. Rachel nodded firmly. Absolutely. She was very careful, but I was watching because, well, to be honest, she's been rude to the staff all night. And the way she asked about your glass specifically seemed strange. Thank you for telling me, I said, my mind racing. I could lose my job, she admitted. But I couldn't just say nothing. As Rachel slipped back toward the main room, memories began flooding back. 3 Christmases ago, I'd become violently ill after dinner. Last summer at the family 4th of July gathering, I'd experienced extreme dizziness and had written it off as too much sun and alcohol. At Trevor's birthday last year, I'd had such severe stomach cramps that I'd left early. Each time, Diana had been particularly attentive, insisting on getting me drinks or fixing my plate. I leaned against the wall, thoughts swirling. Why would Diana want to drug me? Was she trying to make me look bad in front of the family? Or was it something more sinister? The pattern of illness after family gatherings suddenly seemed less like coincidence, and more like something calculated. I had 2 choices: confront Diana directly or investigate discreetly. Confrontation would create a scene on Trevor's special night, and without proof, it would be my word against hers. My father would certainly take her side, as he always did. No. I needed to be strategic. Taking a deep breath, I headed back to the dining room. The anniversary toast would be starting soon, and guests were finding their seats. Diana was speaking with the event planner, momentarily distracted. This was my chance. I approached the family table casually, noting the place cards. Diana had indeed seated me between herself and Jessica. My glass sat waiting, identical to the others except for a nearly imperceptible smudge on the rim, as if something liquid had dried there. As guests milled about, finding their seats and creating a helpful confusion, I made my move. With a quick glance to ensure no one was watching, I swapped my glass with Diana's, which was positioned at the head of the table beside my father's. The glasses were identical, and in the commotion of seating arrangements, no one noticed the switch. There you are, Trevor said, clapping a hand on my shoulder. We're about to start. I smiled, trying to appear normal despite my racing heart. Wouldn't miss it. As everyone settled into their seats, I watched Diana from the corner of my eye. She returned to the table with a satisfied expression, taking her place next to my father. Her eyes flickered briefly to my glass, now in front of her, though she couldn't know it had been switched. My father stood, raising his glass. To my son Trevor and his beautiful wife Natalie. 10 years of marriage is an achievement worth celebrating in today's world. Everyone raised their glasses. I lifted mine, pretending to sip while actually just touching the liquid to my closed lips. Across the table, Diana took a generous drink, her eyes meeting mine over the rim of her glass. Was that a triumphant gleam I saw there? Did she think she'd succeeded in whatever she'd planned? To Trevor and Natalie, everyone echoed, drinking from their glasses. I set mine down, still full, and watched as Diana finished hers completely. Whatever was going to happen would begin soon. And I found myself both dreading and anticipating the next few minutes. Trevor stood to make his own speech, thanking everyone for coming. I tried to focus on his words, but my attention kept drifting to Diana, waiting for any sign that the drink was affecting her. For now, she appeared completely normal, smiling warmly and playing the perfect hostess. Had Rachel been mistaken? Or was I? Perhaps there was an innocent explanation. But deep down, I knew there wasn't. The question now was what exactly Diana had put in the drink. And what would happen when it took effect. As Trevor concluded his speech to applause, servers began bringing out the first course. Diana leaned toward me, her voice low. "You're awfully quiet tonight, Mason. Not feeling well?" There was something in her tone, an expectation, that confirmed my suspicions. She was watching for symptoms. Waiting for whatever she'd put in my drink to take effect. "I'm fine," I replied evenly. "Just enjoying the celebration." Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Well? Do let me know if you need anything. I always worry about you." The irony of her concern wasn't lost on me. As the meal progressed, I continued to avoid drinking from my glass, dumping small amounts into my water glass under the table when no one was looking to create the impression I was drinking it. 20 minutes into dinner, I noticed Diana dabbing at her forehead with her napkin. A fine sheen of sweat had appeared on her skin, and she shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "Diana, are you all right?" my father asked, noticing her distress. "Just a bit warm," she replied, her voice slightly strained. "I'm sure it's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. As the minutes ticked by, her discomfort became more apparent. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass, and her focus seemed to drift during conversation. Whatever she had put in my drink was now working its way through her system instead. And judging by her deteriorating condition, it wasn't just something to cause mild embarrassment. This was serious. I found myself torn between concern for what was happening and satisfaction that her plan had backfired. What would have happened to me if I'd drunk from that glass? As I watched Diana's condition worsen, I realized I might soon find out. 20 minutes had passed since the toast, and the dinner was in full swing. Conversation flowed around the table as servers cleared the appetizer plates and brought out the main course. I maintained my composure, but my attention remained fixed on Diana, who was becoming increasingly disoriented. She'd stopped participating in conversations, her responses becoming delayed and confused when anyone addressed her directly. Twice she'd missed her mouth with her fork, and now she was gripping the edge of the table as if to steady herself. My father, engrossed in a conversation with a business associate, hadn't fully registered her deteriorating condition. Trevor, however, kept glancing at Diana with growing concern from his place at the other end of the table. "And now," the event planner announced, "Mr. Trevor Collins would like to say a few words about his wonderful journey of 10 years with Natalie." Trevor stood, champagne glass in hand, and began speaking about the day he met Natalie. Under normal circumstances, I would have been fully engaged in my brother's speech, but my attention was divided between him and Diana, who was now swaying slightly in her chair. "Natalie came into my life when I least expected it," Trevor was saying. "Sometimes the greatest gifts arrive in the most unexpected packages." Diana suddenly stood up, cutting Trevor off mid-sentence. All eyes turned to her as she gripped the back of her chair, her face alarmingly pale. I can't," she mumbled, before her legs seemed to give way beneath her. I reacted instinctively, jumping up to catch her before she hit the floor. Despite years of tension between us, letting her collapse wasn't an option. As I lowered her to the ground, chaos erupted around us. "Diana!" my father shouted, rushing to her side. "What's happening? Someone call an ambulance!" Natalie, a former nurse, pushed through the gathering crowd. "Give her space. Let me check her." As Natalie assessed Diana, my father turned on me, his face contorted with anger and fear. "What did you do to her?" he demanded, grabbing my shoulder roughly. "I didn't do anything," I replied, pulling away from his grip. She collapsed. "This is exactly like you, Mason," he hissed. "Always causing scenes. Always disrupting everything." His accusation stung, but didn't surprise me. In his eyes, I was always the problem. Her pulse is rapid and her pupils are dilated. Natalie reported. She needs medical attention immediately. Trevor had joined us now, kneeling beside his wife. The ambulance is on its way. 4 minutes out. As guests murmured and staff rushed about. I caught Trevor's eye and motioned for him to follow me. We stepped away from the group surrounding Diana. I need to tell you something, I said quietly. And you're not going to believe it. What is it? Trevor asked, his expression tense. The bartender, Rachel, warned me that Diana put something in my drink. That's why she collapsed. We swapped glasses during the confusion before the toast. Trevor stared at me, disbelief written across his face. Are you serious? Why would Diana drug you? I don't know. But think about it. Trevor. How many times have I gotten mysteriously ill at family gatherings? It's always after Diana insists on handling the drinks or food. That's a serious accusation, Mason, he said. But I could see doubt creeping into his expression. You're suggesting our stepmother has been poisoning you? I'm suggesting something isn't right. And now we have proof. Whatever she put in my drink is what's affecting her now. Trevor ran a hand through his hair, a gesture reminiscent of our childhood when he was wrestling with a difficult decision. What do you want to do? When they take her to the hospital, we need to make sure they test her blood. Whatever she used will still be in her system. He nodded slowly. I'll go with them. Make sure they run a full toxicology panel. Thank you, I said, relief washing over me. Despite our differences, Trevor had always been fair. It was one of the reasons we'd maintained our relationship when my bond with the rest of the family had fractured. The memory of Trevor defending me against Diana's subtle manipulations years ago surfaced. When I'd first expressed interest in teaching instead of finance. Diana had launched a campaign to change my mind, suggesting to my father that I was going through a phase of rebellion. Trevor had been the one to stand up for me, insisting that I had the right to choose my own path. Paramedics arrived, cutting through the crowd with practiced efficiency. As they loaded Diana onto a stretcher, my father hovered anxiously nearby. He hadn't even glanced in my direction again. I'll go with them, Trevor told me. Stay here and see if you can find that bartender. We need her statement. I nodded, scanning the room for Rachel, but she was nowhere to be seen. The other staff members were huddled near the kitchen entrance, watching the scene unfold with wide eyes. Excuse me. I approached one of the waiters. I'm looking for Rachel, the bartender. She left, he replied, right after the toast. Said she wasn't feeling well and asked to go home early. That was odd. Had she been afraid of repercussions for warning me? Or was there more to the story? Do you know how to reach her? I asked. It's important. The waiter shook his head. Sorry. We're just hired for the event. You'd have to ask the catering company. As the paramedics wheeled Diana out, my father and Trevor following close behind, the event planner began attempting to restore order among the shocked guests. Natalie approached me, her expression grave. Trevor told me what you said, she whispered. Is it true? I believe so, I replied. I need to find Rachel to confirm what she saw. I'll help you. The catering company information will be in my files. While Natalie went to retrieve her planner, I noticed Jessica watching me from across the room, her expression unreadable. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away, busying herself with comforting some of the more distressed guests. I made my way through the dispersing crowd toward the bar, hoping to find some evidence of what Rachel had witnessed. The bar area was deserted now, glasses and bottles abandoned when the commotion began. I scanned the surface, not sure what I was looking for until I spotted it, a small piece of paper tucked under the edge of the bar mat. Glancing around to make sure no one was watching, I slipped the paper into my pocket just as Natalie returned. I have the company information, she said. And Rachel's full name from the staff list. Rachel Winters. Thank you, I replied, feeling the paper in my pocket like a burning coal. I'll call them tomorrow. Later. After most of the guests had left and the staff were clearing the abandoned dinner, I retreated to my old bedroom. The room had been redecorated years ago, transformed into a generic guest room with no trace of my childhood remaining. Like much of my past in this house, it had been erased under Diana's direction. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I finally pulled out the crumpled paper from my pocket. It wasn't a note as I'd expected, but a business card. Rachel Winters, private investigator. And scrawled on the back, a phone number and 3 words. Call me. Urgent. The next morning, I woke to a text from Trevor. Hospital confirms sedatives in Diana's system. Midazolam, high dose. Dad's losing it. Come to hospital ASAP. Midazolam. A powerful benzodiazepine, often used for procedural sedation. The kind of drug that could make someone appear dangerously intoxicated, lose consciousness. Or worse if combined with alcohol. The kind of drug that could have seriously harmed me if I'd consumed it. By the time I arrived at Massachusetts General Hospital, the situation had escalated. My father was pacing the private waiting room, his face flushed with anger. Jessica sat nearby, her expression strained. Trevor stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. There he is! My father snarled when I entered. The man who poisoned my wife. I didn't poison anyone, I replied evenly. Diana put something in my drink. I swapped our glasses. Convenient story. He shot back. You've always been jealous of her relationship with me. Always trying to drive a wedge between us. Trevor ended his call and stepped between us. Dad, please. The toxicology report confirms Diana had midazolam in her system. The question is how it got there. Ask your brother. My father snapped. I'm telling you what happened. I insisted. The bartender saw Diana put something in my drink. She warned me. This mysterious bartender who conveniently disappeared. Jessica interjected, her voice dripping with skepticism. I pulled Rachel's business card from my pocket. Not so mysterious. And I'm meeting her in an hour. That gave them pause. Even my father seemed taken aback. You're not going alone, Trevor said firmly. I'm coming with you. Fine by me, I replied. My father collapsed into a chair, suddenly looking every one of his 65 years. This is absurd. Diana would never do something like that. How well do we really know her, Dad? I asked quietly. Think about it. How much do you actually know about her past before you met? He didn't answer. But the question hung in the air between us. How is she? I asked Trevor. Stable. Sedated. They're keeping her for observation and psychiatric evaluation. An hour later. Trevor and I sat in a small coffee shop 6 blocks from the hospital. Rachel Winters looked nothing like the bartender from the night before. Gone was the severe ponytail and uniform, replaced by casual clothes and loose curls. The only thing unchanged was the intensity in her eyes. I wasn't actually working for the catering company, she admitted after we'd introduced ourselves. I've been investigating Diana Collins for nearly 8 months. Investigating her for what? Trevor asked. Rachel glanced around before lowering her voice. I was hired by the family of Harold Keaton. Does that name ring any bells? Trevor and I exchanged blank looks. He was your father's closest friend about 2 years ago, Rachel explained. He died suddenly of an apparent heart attack after questioning Diana's background at a dinner party. The name clicked into place. Dad's tennis partner, I remembered. They had some kind of falling out, and then he died a few weeks later. It wasn't a falling out, Rachel said. According to witnesses. Harold told your father he'd discovered something concerning about Diana's past. Your father dismissed it, but Harold was persistent. Then he died before he could share what he'd found. Are you suggesting Diana had something to do with his death? Trevor asked, his voice strained. Rachel opened her laptop and turned it toward us. Diana Collins isn't her real name. It's Vanessa Mercer. Before that, she was Elizabeth Raymond. And before that, Cassandra Winters, no relation to me. The screen showed driver's licenses with Diana's face but different names, spanning back 15 years. She's been married 3 times before your father, Rachel continued. Each husband wealthy, each marriage ending with the husband either dead or financially ruined. I felt sick. And you think she's been slowly poisoning me because I was suspicious of her? Most likely. It fits her pattern. She eliminates threats. From what I've gathered, you've never fully accepted her, which makes you dangerous in her eyes. Trevor rubbed his temples. This is insane. Our father has been married to this woman for 15 years. The long con is her specialty, Rachel replied. She's patient. Her first husband died after 12 years of marriage. The autopsy showed trace amounts of various toxins, but not enough to raise serious alarms. It was ruled natural causes. As Rachel laid out the evidence she'd gathered, a horrifying picture emerged. Diana, or whatever her real name was, had been systematically working to control our family's fortune. Documents showed that over the years, she'd convinced my father to change his will multiple times, each revision giving her more control. Last month, your father signed over power of attorney to her, Rachel said, showing us the document. He probably doesn't even remember doing it. I suspect she's been drugging him too, small doses over time to make him more compliant, more forgetful. That explains the changes in Dad over the past few years, I said, memories clicking into place. His increasing forgetfulness, mood swings, irrational anger toward me. She's been isolating him from anyone who might question her influence, Rachel confirmed. Your brother was too busy with his own life to notice the subtle changes. You were already estranged. Jessica was easily manipulated through your father's approval. We need to talk to the family lawyer, Trevor said decisively. If what you're saying is true, we need to protect Dad and the family assets immediately. There's more, Rachel said grimly. I believe she's been slowly poisoning your father as well. Low doses of heavy metals, most likely. The symptoms are subtle: cognitive decline, irritability, fatigue. All easily attributed to aging or stress. The implication was clear. Diana wasn't just manipulating our father. She was killing him slowly while positioning herself to inherit everything. Armed with Rachel's evidence, Trevor and I returned to the hospital, where we found Walter Griffith, the family lawyer, speaking with our father. Walter had been the Collins family attorney for over 30 years, and if anyone could help us navigate this nightmare, it was him. Trevor Mason, Walter greeted us solemnly. Your father was just filling me in on last night's events. We need to talk to you privately, Trevor said. It's urgent. Walter glanced at our father, who waved his hand dismissively. Go ahead. Apparently, everyone's making decisions without me now anyway. In a private consultation room, we showed Walter the evidence Rachel had compiled. The elderly lawyer's face grew increasingly grave as he reviewed the documents. I've had concerns about Mrs. Collins for some time, he admitted. Especially regarding the recent changes to your father's will and the power of attorney. They seemed out of character, but your father was insistent. Can we reverse it? Trevor asked. With this evidence and the toxicology report, yes. I can file for an emergency injunction freezing all assets and revoking the power of attorney pending investigation. Walter adjusted his glasses. But you should know, your father may not react well to this. He's been under her influence for a long time. We have to try, I said firmly. She nearly killed me last night. And she's been slowly poisoning Dad for years. Walter nodded, gathering the documents. I'll file the paperwork immediately. In the meantime, keep this information between us. If Mrs. Collins realizes we're onto her, there's no telling what she might do. As Walter left to make the necessary legal arrangements, Trevor and I steeled ourselves for what would likely be the hardest conversation of our lives, telling our father that his wife of 15 years was a con artist who had been slowly killing him. When we returned to the waiting room, Jessica was there, her expression conflicted. "Dad went to see Diana," she said. "They're letting her have visitors." Trevor and I exchanged alarmed looks. "We need to get in there," I said, already moving toward the door. "Wait," Jessica called. "There's something I need to tell you first. About Diana." We paused, turning back to her. "Last year," Jessica began, her voice trembling slightly, "I found some strange medications in Diana's bathroom. When I asked her about them, she said they were for Dad's cognitive health but that he didn't know about them because he was stubborn about taking medication. She made me promise not to tell him." "What kind of medications?" Trevor asked urgently. "I don't remember the names, but I took photos." Jessica pulled out her phone, scrolling through her gallery before showing us the images. "I was worried, so I kept them just in case." Rachel had joined us now, and she examined the photos with a grim expression. "These aren't cognitive health medications. This one is a sedative, and these others." She looked up at us. "They're consistent with what would be used for long-term poisoning. Untraceable in small doses, causing symptoms that mimic natural aging and decline." Jessica covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh my God!" I helped her. I actually helped her poison Dad. She would ask me to make sure he took his vitamins when she was away. "You didn't know," I said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "She manipulated all of us. We need to get to Dad now," Trevor insisted, "before Diana realizes we know the truth." As we hurried toward Diana's room, I couldn't help but wonder what kind of confrontation awaited us. The woman who had infiltrated our family, who had systematically worked to destroy us from within, was cornered now. And cornered predators were the most dangerous kind. We reached Diana's hospital room just as a nurse was exiting. "Is my father in there?" Trevor asked urgently. "Yes, but Mrs. Collins is resting. Please keep the visit brief," the nurse replied, continuing down the hallway. Through the small window in the door, I could see my father sitting beside Diana's bed, holding her hand while she appeared to be sleeping. The scene would have seemed touching if we didn't know the truth. "How do we do this?" Jessica whispered, her voice trembling. "Directly," I said. "We present the evidence and get Dad out of there before she can manipulate him further." Trevor nodded, squaring his shoulders. "Let's go." We entered the room quietly. My father looked up, his expression hardening when he saw me. "What are you doing here?" he demanded in a harsh whisper. "Dad, we need to talk to you," Trevor said firmly. "It's important." "Not now," he hissed. "Can't you see she's resting?" "I'm awake, Robert," Diana murmured, her eyes fluttering open. When she saw all three of us standing there, something flickered across her face. Calculation. Wariness. Then it was gone, replaced by a weak smile. "The whole family is here." "How nice." "We know the truth, Diana," I said, cutting to the chase. "About your real identity. About Harold Keaton. About what you've been doing to our father." Her expression didn't change, but I noticed her hand tighten around my father's. "I don't know what you're talking about. The doctors say I was drugged last night. Perhaps you know something about that, Mason?" "Stop it," Trevor interjected, his voice steady. "We have proof. Driver's licenses with your photo but different names. Records of your previous marriages. The medications you've been giving Dad." "What is this nonsense?" my father demanded, standing up. "Have you all lost your minds?" Rachel stepped forward, introducing herself properly. "Mr. Collins, I'm a private investigator hired by the family of Harold Keaton. I've been investigating your wife for 8 months, and what I've found is disturbing." "Harold? What does he have to do with anything?" My father looked genuinely confused. "He discovered something about Diana's past," I explained. Something that concerned him enough to try to warn you. Then he died suddenly. That was a heart attack, my father insisted. A tragic coincidence. There are no coincidences with Diana, Rachel said, opening her laptop to show him the evidence. Her real name is Vanessa Mercer, and before that, she was Elizabeth Raymond. She's been married 3 times before you, each time to wealthy men who either died mysteriously or lost everything. My father stared at the screen, his face paling as he took in the driver's licenses, marriage certificates, and news clippings about the deaths of Diana's previous husbands. This is absurd, Diana said, her voice stronger now. These could be photoshopped. This woman clearly has some vendetta against me. The hospital confirmed midazolam in your system, Trevor countered. The same drug found in your bathroom cabinet. According to the photos Jessica took. Jessica stepped forward, showing our father the pictures on her phone. The vitamins you've been taking, Dad? They're not vitamins. Diana's been poisoning you. I was trying to help him. Diana protested. Robert has been having memory issues. The supplements were for his cognitive health. Then why keep it a secret? I challenged. Why tell Jessica not to mention them to him? Because he's stubborn about medication. You know that. My father was looking between Diana and the evidence. Conflict clear on his face. Diana wouldn't, she loves me. She loves your money, Rachel corrected gently. Just like she loved the money of James Mercer, Thomas Raymond, and William Winters. All dead within 2 years of changing their wills in her favor. Diana's facade began to crack. Her eyes, previously wide with false innocence, narrowed dangerously. You have no idea what you're talking about. We know exactly what we're talking about, I said. Last night you put midazolam in my champagne. The same thing you've probably been doing for years at family gatherings, keeping me disoriented and sick so I couldn't piece together what was happening. You switched our glasses, Diana said, the pretense dropping entirely. I saw you do it. The admission hung in the air, damning in its simplicity. My father staggered back, bracing himself against the wall. You tried to drug Mason? He asked, his voice barely audible. Diana realized her mistake too late. Her expression cycled rapidly through shock, anger, and finally calculation. Robert, you don't understand. Mason has been trying to turn you against me for years. I was just trying to keep him quiet during the anniversary party. It was harmless. Midazolam combined with alcohol is not harmless, Trevor countered. It could have caused respiratory depression or worse. Walter is filing for an emergency injunction right now. I told my father, freezing all assets and revoking Diana's power of attorney. We need to get you tested for heavy metals and other toxins. Diana's composure shattered completely. She ripped the four from her arm and lunged from the bed with surprising strength for someone who had been sedated. You ungrateful brats, she spat. 15 years I've put up with this family. 15 years of playing the perfect wife while your father pined for your precious dead mother. My father flinched as if he'd been slapped. Diana, please. Don't Diana please me. She snarled. You were never supposed to wake up from your nap that day, Robert. One more dose and I would have had everything. But your son had to ruin it all. The confession stunned us all into silence. Diana took advantage of our shock, grabbing her purse from the bedside table. I moved to stop her. But she pulled out a small canister of what I assumed was pepper spray. Stay back, she warned, backing toward the door. I still have friends in the city. Powerful friends. This isn't over. The hospital room door burst open behind her, revealing 2 security guards and a police officer. Walter stood behind them, his expression grim. Mrs. Collins, the officer said. We need you to come with us. We have some questions about the substances found in your possession. Diana's eyes darted around, searching for an escape route. Finding none. She suddenly lunged at Jessica, grabbing her and holding the pepper spray to her face. "Let me leave, or she gets it in the eyes," Diana threatened. "Diana, stop this," my father pleaded. "You need help." "Help?" She laughed bitterly. "I had everything under control until your precious son interfered. Always Mason this, Mason that. Even when you were angry with him. He was all you talked about." While Diana's attention was on my father, I caught Jessica's eye and gave a subtle nod. Jessica, understanding my signal, went limp in Diana's grasp, throwing off her balance. In that moment of distraction, I lunged forward, knocking the pepper spray from Diana's hand while Trevor pulled Jessica to safety. The security guards moved quickly, restraining Diana as she thrashed and screamed. "You're all going to regret this," she shouted as they handcuffed her. "I know things about each of you. Secrets that will tear this family apart. Take her to the secure psychiatric ward," the officer instructed the guards, "and search her belongings thoroughly." As they dragged Diana away, her screams echoing down the corridor, my father collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. "I brought her into our home," he murmured. "I gave her access to everything. To all of you. How could I have been so blind?" I knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "She's a professional con artist, Dad. She manipulated everyone." "Not you," he replied, looking up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "You always saw through her. And I pushed you away because of it." The moment was interrupted by the arrival of two detectives, who introduced themselves as being from the Major Crimes Unit. "We need to ask all of you some questions," the female detective said. "And Mr. Collins, we'll need to get you to the hospital for toxicology testing immediately." As the gravity of the situation settled over us, I realized that our family's ordeal was far from over. Diana might be in custody, but the damage she had done would take years to repair, both financially and emotionally. The most important thing, though, was that we had stopped her before she could complete whatever endgame she had planned. My father was alive. Our family, fractured as it was, had survived. And perhaps, in the aftermath of this trauma, we might find a way to rebuild what had been broken long before Diana entered our lives. The weeks following Diana's arrest unfolded like a surreal nightmare. Our family name was splashed across newspapers and television screens throughout Boston, the salacious details of Diana's deception providing endless fodder for public consumption. "Socialite arrested for attempted murder," one headline screamed. "Serial black widow infiltrates prominent Boston family," declared another. For a family that had always valued privacy and discretion, the publicity was its own form of torture. But the media circus was the least of our concerns. My father's toxicology results had confirmed our worst fears. Elevated levels of arsenic and lead had been found in his system, along with traces of several psychiatric medications known to cause cognitive impairment and increased suggestibility. The doctors estimated he'd been exposed to these substances for at least 5 years, possibly longer. The good news, Dr. Lancaster told us during a family meeting at Massachusetts General, is that we've caught this before permanent damage occurred. With proper treatment and time, your father should make a full recovery. And the memory issues? The mood swings? Trevor asked. Those should improve as the toxins leave his system, the doctor assured us. Though it may take 6 months to a year to see complete reversal of symptoms. My father, seated in a wheelchair beside the doctor, looked smaller somehow. The larger-than-life figure who had dominated my childhood had been reduced to a fragile old man, betrayed by the woman he trusted most. "I'd like to speak with Mason alone," he said suddenly, interrupting the doctor's explanation of the treatment plan. The others exchanged glances before filing out of the room, leaving me alone with my father for the first time in years. For several moments, neither of us spoke. The beeping of medical equipment and distant hospital announcements filled the silence. "I owe you an apology," he finally said, his voice rough with emotion. "Many apologies, actually. I shifted uncomfortably in my chair. Dad, you don't need to. I do, he insisted. She turned me against you. Made me believe you were jealous, unstable, even dangerous. And I believed her because it was easier than admitting I might have failed as a father after your mother died. The mention of my mother sent a pang through my chest. You didn't fail us. I did, he countered. I was so lost in my grief that I let a predator into our home. I chose her over my own children because she made the pain go away temporarily. And when you refused to accept her, I punished you for it. I swallowed hard against the lump forming in my throat. We all make mistakes. Not mistakes that nearly get their children killed. His hand trembled as he reached for mine. Can you ever forgive me, Mason? The question hung between us, heavy with years of hurt and misunderstanding. Could I forgive him? For the arguments, the dismissals, the years of choosing Diana over me? It wouldn't be easy, but as I looked at him now, I saw not the stern patriarch who had rejected my life choices, but a broken man seeking redemption. I think we can start over, I said finally. It won't happen overnight, but I'm willing to try if you are. The relief on his face was palpable. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. Outside in the hallway, I found Trevor waiting for me. How did it go? Better than expected, I admitted. Though we have a long way to go. We all do, he agreed, falling into step beside me as we headed toward the elevator. Jessica's taking it especially hard. She can't forgive herself for helping Diana with the vitamins. None of this is her fault, I said firmly. Diana manipulated all of us in different ways. The investigation into Diana's past was revealing more horrors with each passing day. Beyond her 3 previous husbands, authorities had linked her to at least 2 other wealthy men who had died under suspicious circumstances. Her real name, as it turned out, was Margaret Fowler. Born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to middle-class parents who had died in a house fire when she was 19. The insurance money from that tragedy had funded her transformation into the sophisticated socialite who had eventually targeted our family. Most disturbing of all was the discovery of a detailed journal in a safety deposit box under one of her aliases. The journal outlined her plans for each of us. My father was to die of apparent natural causes after signing everything over to her. Trevor and Natalie would be driven apart through a manufactured scandal. Jessica would be kept dependent and compliant through emotional manipulation, and I would suffer a fatal accident once my father was out of the way. Have you spoken with Rachel recently? Trevor asked as we exited the hospital into the bright autumn sunshine. Yesterday, I replied. She's been subpoenaed for Diana's trial. The prosecutor thinks her testimony will be crucial. We owe her everything, Trevor said. If she hadn't infiltrated the party that night. The thought didn't bear completing. Without Rachel's warning, I would have consumed Diana's drugged champagne. Given the dosage found in her system after our glass swap, the combination with alcohol could have been fatal. Especially if I'd tried to drive home afterward. Speaking of the trial, I said, Walter called this morning. They've recovered most of Dad's assets, but about $2 million is still missing. They think Diana may have accomplices we don't know about yet. Trevor sighed heavily. It never ends, does it? Just when I think we've discovered the full extent of her deception, something new emerges. We reach Trevor's car in the parking garage. Before getting in, he turned to me. Natalie and I are renewing our vows next month. A small ceremony, just family. Nothing like the spectacle Diana orchestrated. We'd like you to be my best man. The offer caught me by surprise. Are you sure? There must be friends from Harvard or the firm. None who've saved my father's life. He interrupted. None who are my brother. Please, Mason. It would mean a lot to both of us. Emotion threatened to overwhelm me. Throughout our adult lives, Trevor and I had maintained a cordial relationship, but there had always been distance between us, partly due to our different life paths and partly due to Diana's subtle influence. This gesture represented more than just a role in a ceremony. It was an acknowledgement of our renewed bond as brothers. "I'd be honored," I said simply. Trevor smiled, relief evident in his expression. "Good. Now let's go check on Jessica. She's at the house overseeing the removal of Diana's things." The family estate felt different now. Lighter somehow despite the circumstances. Removal crews moved efficiently through the rooms, boxing up Diana's extensive wardrobe, jewelry, and personal items for evidence processing. Jessica supervised from the center of the great room, clipboard in hand, looking more like our mother than I'd ever noticed before. "The police want to check behind the panels in her dressing room," she informed us when we arrived. Apparently, they found a reference to a hidden compartment in her notes. "How are you holding up?" I asked, noting the dark circles under her eyes. "I've been better," she admitted with a wan smile. "But I'll survive. We all will." "Have you eaten today?" Trevor asked, slipping into his natural role as the responsible older brother. Jessica shook her head. "Haven't had time." "Then we're taking a break," he declared. "The evidence isn't going anywhere." As we settled in the kitchen with sandwiches prepared by Mrs. Hendricks, our longtime cook who had been temporarily rehired after Diana's arrest, I felt a strange sense of déjà vu. The three of us, sitting around the kitchen island, could have been a scene from our childhood, before our mother's death changed everything. "Remember how Mom used to let us eat ice cream in here after Dad went to bed?" Jessica asked suddenly, as if reading my thoughts. Trevor laughed. "And she'd make us promise not to tell him. She always gave Mason an extra scoop," Jessica recalled. "Said it was because he needed sweetness to balance his serious nature." The memory, unexpected and precious, brought a lump to my throat. I'd forgotten that. "Diana tried to erase her from this house," Jessica said quietly. "All of Mom's things, her photographs, even the color schemes she loved. Diana changed everything. We can change it back," I suggested. "Make this place ours again." Trevor nodded thoughtfully. "Dad's talking about selling, actually. Too many bad memories. But maybe that's not the answer. What if we renovated instead?" Jessica proposed. "Not back to exactly how it was, but something new that still honors Mom." "I think she'd like that," I agreed. As we continued talking, planning, remembering, I realized that something fundamental had shifted. Diana had failed in her ultimate goal. Far from destroying our family, her actions had inadvertently brought us back together, forcing us to confront the unhealed wounds of our past and begin the process of genuine reconciliation. It wouldn't be easy. My father's recovery would be long and complex. The legal proceedings against Diana would drag on, forcing us to relive the betrayal again and again. The public scrutiny would continue for months, possibly years. But sitting there with my siblings, sharing memories of our mother and cautiously building new ones, I felt something I hadn't experienced in that house for a very long time: hope. Not the false hope that Diana had offered my father, a counterfeit emotion designed to manipulate and control, but genuine hope. Hope for healing. Hope for forgiveness. Hope for a future where the Collins family was truly whole again. As the afternoon sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows, illuminating the three of us in its golden glow, I allowed myself to believe that such a future was not just possible, but already beginning. 6 months after the night that changed everything, we gathered once again at the Collins estate. But this time, there was no pretense, no underlying tension, no shadow of manipulation hanging over us. This was a genuine celebration, marking not just Trevor and Natalie's vow renewal, but our family's rebirth. The house itself had been transformed. Under Jessica's meticulous direction, the cold, formal spaces Diana had created had been replaced with warm colors and comfortable furnishings. Photographs of our mother, long hidden away in storage, once again graced the walls, alongside new family pictures taken in recent months. "You look good, Dad," I said, straightening his tie as we prepared for the ceremony in what had once been his study. Robert Collins, now 70, had indeed recovered remarkably well. The toxins that had clouded his mind and weakened his body were gone, and with them, the irritability and confusion that had characterized his behavior for years. His hair was still silver, his face still lined with age. But his eyes were clear and alert in a way they hadn't been since before Diana entered our lives. "I feel good," he replied, placing his hand over mine. "Better than I have in a long time." The journey to this moment had not been easy. There had been setbacks along the way, days when the weight of betrayal threatened to crush us, when the shame of having been so thoroughly deceived drove my father into depression, when the legal battles seemed endless and exhausting. Diana's trial was ongoing, complicated by the discovery of additional victims and the mysterious disappearance of some key evidence. She had pleaded not guilty, of course, mounting a defense based on claims of mental illness and spousal abuse. None of us were surprised by her tactics. Manipulation was, after all, her greatest skill. But we had refused to let her continue controlling our lives from behind bars. With the help of both individual and family therapy, we had begun the painful process of healing. Confronting not just the trauma of Diana's deception, but the unresolved grief over our mother's death that had left us vulnerable in the first place. "I want you to have this," my father said suddenly, pressing something into my palm. I opened my hand to find my mother's wedding ring on a simple gold chain. "Dad, I can't." "She would want you to have it," he insisted. "You were always the most like her. The same strength, the same integrity, the same ability to see through people's facades to what lies beneath." "Is that why Diana targeted me?" I asked quietly. He nodded, pain flashing across his features. "I believe so. She recognized in you what I was too blind to see. A threat to her plans. Someone who couldn't be manipulated or bought." The sound of music drifting up from the garden below signaled that it was time for the ceremony to begin. As best man, I needed to take my place beside Trevor beneath the arbor where he and Natalie would renew their commitment to each other. "We should go," I said, carefully placing the necklace in my pocket for safekeeping. My father nodded, taking a deep breath. "One more thing, Mason. I've been talking with the board at Westridge High School. They're looking for someone to develop a new financial literacy program for students. Westridge was one of the most prestigious private schools in Boston, and my father had connections there going back decades. Are you trying to get me a job, Dad?" I asked, amused by the reversal of our old arguments about my career choice. "Not exactly," he replied with a small smile. "I'm investing in the program. A substantial endowment to ensure it continues for years to come. But they need someone to design the curriculum. Someone who understands both finance and education. I suggested they talk to you." The gesture touched me deeply. Not because I needed his help finding employment, but because it represented his acceptance of my path, his recognition of the value in what I had chosen to do with my life. "Thank you," I said simply. "I'll think about it." The garden ceremony was everything Trevor and Natalie had wanted for their vow renewal: intimate, authentic, and filled with genuine emotion rather than the performative spectacle Diana had orchestrated for their anniversary. Jessica stood as Natalie's attendant, while their closest friends and my father occupied the few chairs set up on the lawn. Rachel Winters was there too, no longer in disguise but as herself. An honored guest who had become a friend to our family. Her testimony had been crucial in the early hearings against Diana, and she had continued to support us throughout the legal proceedings. As Trevor and Natalie exchanged vows beneath an arbor draped with simple white flowers, I found myself reflecting on the strange journey that had brought us to this moment. How close we had come to losing everything. How a simple glass swap had set in motion events that saved not just my life, but my father's as well, and ultimately our entire family. The reception afterward was small but joyful, held in the renovated great room where Diana had collapsed 6 months earlier. The space had been completely transformed, with no trace remaining of that awful night. To new beginnings, my father toasted, raising his glass of sparkling cider. He had given up alcohol entirely during his recovery. Another positive change. To truth, Trevor added. To family, Jessica concluded. As conversations flowed around me, I stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney. In the distance, Boston's skyline glittered against the darkening sky. "Penny for your thoughts," Rachel said, joining me on the terrace. "Just thinking about how different things could have been," I replied. "If you hadn't been there that night, if you hadn't warned me." "You would have figured it out eventually," she said confidently. "You were already suspicious of Diana. It just might have taken longer, and the costs might have been higher." "Thank you," I said. "Not for the first time. For everything you did for us." "Just doing my job," she demurred, though we both knew it had become much more than that. Besides, it helped bring closure to Harold Keaton's family as well. Inside, laughter erupted, drawing our attention back to the gathering. Through the windows, I could see Trevor with his arm around Natalie. My father deep in conversation with one of Natalie's relatives, Jessica showing photos on her phone to Rachel's partner who had arrived later. "You know," Rachel said thoughtfully, "in all my years as an investigator, I've seen many families torn apart by deception and betrayal. But rarely have I seen one emerge stronger for it. We almost didn't," I admitted. "There were moments when I thought the damage was too deep, the hurt too raw." "What made the difference, do you think?" I considered the question carefully. "Forgiveness, I suppose. Not the kind that forgets or excuses what happened, but the kind that acknowledges the pain and chooses to move forward anyway. That and the recognition that what Diana tried to destroy was worth saving." Rachel nodded thoughtfully. "A powerful lesson. The poison Diana intended for me ended up being the antidote our family needed all along." I reflected. Sometimes it takes near destruction to rebuild something authentic. Later that evening, as the last guests departed and the catering staff began cleaning up, I found myself alone with my father, Trevor, and Jessica in the library, the one room that had always been off limits to Diana. "I have something to show you all," my father said, moving to the antique desk that had belonged to my grandfather. From a hidden compartment, he withdrew a leather-bound journal. "Your mother's. She kept it during her illness, writing letters to each of you to read when you were older. Diana found it once and tried to destroy it, but I managed to save it without her knowing." He handed the journal to me, its cover worn with age. "I should have given this to you years ago. All of you. But I couldn't bear to read it myself. And it seemed easier to lock away the pain than to face it. We can read it together," Jessica suggested, her voice thick with emotion, as we settled around the fireplace. Taking turns reading our mother's words aloud, I felt the last pieces of our healing falling into place. Her voice, preserved in those pages, spoke directly to our hearts across the years, offering the guidance and love we had missed for so long. In her final letter, addressed to all of us, she had written, "Remember that family is not just about blood or name or legacy. It's about seeing each other clearly, accepting each other fully, and choosing to love each other despite our flaws and differences. No matter what challenges you face, no matter what losses you endure, you will always have each other. And in that, you will always have a piece of me." Diana had targeted our family because of its wealth and status, seeing us as nothing more than a means to her own enrichment. In her cold calculation, she had missed the true value of what she was trying to destroy, the bonds between us. Damaged but never fully broken, that had ultimately proved stronger than her manipulation. As I looked around at my family, each face illuminated by the firelight, I realized that we had not just survived Diana's poison, we had been transformed by it. The pain she inflicted had forced us to confront our deepest wounds and begin true healing. The division she exploited had ultimately been bridged. The truths she tried to obscure had finally emerged, not just about her deception, but about ourselves and each other. The poison had become the antidote. The near destruction had led to authentic rebuilding. And in that paradox lay the profound lesson of our experience. Sometimes the greatest threats to our happiness become the catalysts for our most meaningful growth. If you've ever experienced someone trying to come between you and your family, or if you've had to rebuild trust after betrayal, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. This journey has taught me that sharing our experiences can help others recognize the warning signs I missed for so long. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life stories, and share with someone who might need to hear that healing is possible even after the deepest betrayal. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, trust your instincts. They might just save your life one day, like they saved mine.